The COVID-19 pandemic is keeping most Americans in their homes so far this spring. The JFK Library is closed to the public and its staff, but many are working behind the scenes for the library and foundation to keep things going and even innovate during these difficult times.
We'll hear from the directors of both the JFK Library and the JFK Library Foundation about how they're working to continue to share President Kennedy with the world during this public health crisis. That's next on this first episode of Season 4 of JFK 35.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Hello, I'm Matt Porter.
And I'm Jamie Richardson. Welcome to our first episode of Season 4 of JFK 35. This episode and future episodes this season may sound a little different, and that's because we're recording from our homes. Like most Americans, we are all sheltering in place during the pandemic caused by the spread of the coronavirus.
And for this reason, we wanted to start the new season talking about the virus and how both the JFK Library and JFK Foundation are addressing the crisis. The library has been closed since mid-March, but archivists and other staff are still on the job helping researchers and others as best they can. And for the foundation, which Jamie and I work for, we are taking a stronger approach to our digital programming to share the JFK Library's collections, blog posts, and other materials with you through our website, social media, and emails.
And with that said, we'll take you now to the interview we had with JFK Library Director Alan Price and JFK Library Foundation Executive Director Rachel Flor.
Well, I'm now here with my co-host, Jamie Richardson, as we start this fourth season of the JFK 35 podcast a little differently than we have in the past. We're here with JFK Library Executive Director Alan Price and JFK Library Foundation Executive Director Rachel Flor. Alan, Rachel, thanks for being here.
It's great to be with you.
Thanks for having us.
We are all doing this podcast today from our individual homes because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is creating a whole new situation here at the library and foundation. And that's what we want to talk about for our first episode. Alan, Rachel, thanks for being here. Can you start by telling us what has this pandemic meant for the operations of the library and the foundation?
Well, obviously, at some level, it's been an incredible disruption for us and for the audience that wants to come see us. There's no question about that. But it has also forced us to find new and innovative ways to reach out to that audience, to make sure that our collections are still available to the public and inform the public conversation. So we like to think we've risen to that challenge pretty well, but it's definitely been a different operational tempo.
Right, exactly. At the foundation, we have spent many years considering how to help bring the wonderful work of the library outside the walls of the building, so that the material, the archives, and the history and the teachings and learnings can be accessible all around the world. So this has been really an extension of that work in a very consolidated, quick couple of weeks that we've looked for ways to be able to operate and serve our communities, even not being on site.
And Alan, with the library closed, how has that changed the programming with people who work either with people directly on site, like our visitor services people, our volunteers, docents, and with people who work with some of the more physical materials, like the archivists and people who work with exhibits?
Absolutely. Great question. Visitor Services faces this challenge, obviously, because their normal day-to-day is greeting people and making sure they have a terrific experience in our collections. They have spent a lot of time now either rescheduling or booking events for when we do ultimately reopen, and we will. And it's also been an opportunity to take a step back, study what other museums are doing to expand their reach to wider and new audiences. So they're trying to take advantage of the downtime on the day-to-day urgent stuff so that they can think a little bit more long-term on visitor services. Obviously, other departments have to react differently. The archives must continue to respond to researcher requests, though it's a little slower since we don't have many of the materials directly on hand, but we do our best to use the online resources to answer many of the questions, and some of them will have to wait. And for the education and public programs, in some ways, they haven't skipped a beat either, because they already were working on not only on-site but online resources for educators and families. So they continue to do that, crafting lesson plans that go with primary sources. They send out a Teaching and Learning Tuesdays e-blast that goes out to teachers nationally, and any educator can go to the website and sign up to receive them. And they also have the feedback that they've received from educators. It's been an opportunity to review that feedback and use that feedback to develop future programs for families and educators. That all has been terrific. And then for the museum staff, in addition to the planning for new exhibits, there's a lot of, because of the schedule change, postponing things, contractors rescheduling, loans have to be renegotiated based on new schedule terms, and of course, catalog records can be corrected, updated, edited. Ultimately, we are preparing in the long term to launch a public platform of an e-museum along with other branches of the National Archives. So there's a lot to do, even in a telework situation.
Well, that's great to hear. Rachel, how is the foundation, how are they changing its direction with the building inaccessible?
Well, the Kennedy Library Foundation, we serve a few different functions. First, we support through marketing and financial support. We support the work of the library, so helping the archivists and the educators, among others, promote the work that they do, ensure that we help them get the material to as many people and different audiences as possible. So from the marketing and communication standpoint, we've taken this opportunity, as Alan mentioned, to really turn ourselves outward and think about how we can support people in this time of crisis. So where a museum can serve as a refuge in good days and in bad, typically when the doors are open, a refuge for comfort, for a shared humanity, a shared history, and a place of learning, a place, certainly the President Kennedy's Museum is a place of inspiration. We have really had to think about how we deliver that, and especially now we feel a real urgency to deliver that and to play that role to our audiences while being out of the building. So that has become a big marketing and communications function for us and for other museums around the country and the world, to use our social media platforms and all of our different channels for engagement, our email outreach, as ways to offer up both long form and short form content. So repackaging programming materials like our fabulous Kennedy Library Forum series, repackaging those and resurfacing them for people who may have more time on their hands and be interested in learning or digging into a certain topic now, and also just really listening to our audiences about what they're looking for right now. So supporting the work of the educators to ensure that their materials getting not only to educators who are their main audiences, but also the parents, thousands, hundreds and thousands, millions of parents right now have been tasked with homeschooling their children. I know that in my own house, I have 2 kids who are being homeschooled, and it's a real project weekly to figure out interesting material for them to learn and to support their education while they're not at school. So we're helping the education team get to the parents and to other members of the general public where they may not typically communicate to. So that's sort of the marketing and communication side. And then if we have our own program, the Profile and Courage Award program being probably the most well-known, where we honor each year, in honor of President Kennedy's birthday, we honor an elected official who has taken a stand for the greater good. So that work was completed remotely. The committee work was completed remotely, and a winner was chosen. So we're looking for the best way to announce that while we're not in the building. And we're, of course, like everyone else, those big events that typically are held in the spring, like our annual Profile and Courage Award, we're considering other options for presentation and for the dates of that, given that large events won't be happening anytime soon. So there's been a lot of adjustment, and like everyone really in the world, looking into our practices and trying to figure out the best way to serve the people or the communities that we serve, and even broader the country in a time of crisis.
And this, I think, I know as Matt and I have been working, we're thinking about what President Kennedy's words mean to people and to ourselves. And Alan and Rachel, have you, as you've been working both with your staff and in your homes with your families, have you been able to find inspiration or solace from President Kennedy during this crisis?
Oh, more than ever, I think President Kennedy's words and ideals resonate today, particularly with this health crisis. Just when I was trying to explain to my 7-year-old about why he's not at school right now and why he can't see his friends, I found that really digging into President Kennedy's ask not challenge to the country, to ask what you can do for your country, is a way for him to understand, it has been a way for him to understand that maybe this isn't as scary of a situation for him, but it's really an opportunity for him to help people. So by staying at home and not seeing his friends, he's helping his grandparents, and he's helping other people who may have health issues, who could be affected really significantly by this virus. So that's one way. I also think in my own life, I've just seen the impact of public service at every level of government on our collective future. And that's been really a point of inspiration for me. President Kennedy believed so deeply in the power, in the importance of public service, and that it can be a noble profession, and that it is a noble profession. So to see people from, the health commissioners of small towns up through all the levels of government really having their leadership be put to the test right now, and having the country see the importance of our elected leadership is a moment of reflection for me, and thinking about how important President Kennedy had felt public services and how we celebrate public service at the library. I think it's a time to celebrate leaders really at all levels of government and the work that they need to do to help us get out of this crisis. And lastly, I think just reflecting on the individual power of the power of individuals acting on behalf of the greater good. President Kennedy believed deeply in the idea that each of us can make a difference and everyone should try. And we see that in such stark relief today, that each of us and our actions can make such a big difference, and we have this opportunity to be part of the solution. So it's been really heartening just seeing, the incredible, courageous citizenship of those on the front line, down to others who are sacrificing their businesses and their economic security for the greater good, and the young children who are confused about not seeing their friends. It's everybody coming together and the country coming together on behalf of the greater good.
Thank you. Alan, have you found moments from President Kennedy's life that's been inspirational in these times?
Absolutely. And I just have to laugh and say, great minds think alike, because I was going to lead with President Kennedy's call to service. And then when Rachel started talking about that, I said, all right, well, then I'll just go on to his praise of public servants. And then when you hit that, I said, all right, well, then let me just go to bringing the country together. And then you hit that. And I said, all right, well, rather than reinvent the wheel here.
I took the big, we should have talked about this.
No, this is perfect, because these are the messages that the country, I believe, needs to hear, and it resonates very well. When the call to service, when I see that people are stepping up in so many ways to make masks for others, to sign up with their local state representative to be able to make calls and check in on seniors and make sure they're okay. The number of restaurants who are rising to the challenge and just making meals for the food insecure, the homeless, right? There are just countless individual and community efforts where they're not waiting for the federal government to step in and solve their problems. They are solving the problems themselves locally with all the coordination and energy they possibly can. And I think President Kennedy would be absolutely so proud of that, because we all know that the country and the world will go through challenges, but these are, in many ways, as President Kennedy would have said, human challenges, and the human mind can figure out responses. So I think if anybody is looking for a little bit of inspiration, you can go to any number of JFK quotes or come to our website and listen to some JFK audio of him delivering those powerful words. And if you've exhausted all of that, then go to the Bobby Kennedy collection and you'll gain even more inspiration. We like to be an endless source of inspiration for those who want to serve the public.
That's exactly right, Alan. And one of the things that you've been doing, I understand, as the museum's been closed and people's lives are sort of frozen in their homes, not a great way to live for anybody for a long period of time. But as you both mentioned, we move on for the greater good. I understand you've been writing the staff daily. What are you trying to convey in these daily emails as far as to the staff and for morale during this really difficult period?
Well, the power of the written word, I don't think I could keep up with the real volume that Bobby, Teddy, and Jack did in terms of the amount that they communicated to the staff and to the world, and certainly can't keep up with our other collection, the volume of correspondence from Ernest Hemingway. But I try to do my best to at least once a day communicate out to staff either operational things so that everybody stays informed, or a little bit of larger perspective about what's going on across the National Archives, or making sure that individual heroic efforts from our staff and known community members get highlighted so that we can take inspiration from one another. And I like to share a little bit about myself because I tend to overlook that in our day-to-day in-person interactions. And I thought, well, here's an opportunity to share a little bit more about what's going on for the director and give people an opportunity to know me better. And different people resonate with different bits of it, but I think overall it's received a really good response. And I think that people, I would hope, not only feel more clear about their connection of their work to the mission and more clear about their connection to one another, but I think in some small way, nobody should feel alone just because they happen to be shut in their home for the moment.
That's a great thought. And one of the ways we've tried to bring the library to people's homes, and I'm going to turn this over to Jamie actually, but has been through the John F. Kennedy Library from Home sort of marketing campaign that, Jamie, you've basically came up with this idea and have been working with Rachel in the foundation. Could maybe you and Rachel talk about the purpose of the John F. Kennedy Library from Home?
Yeah, I mean, so I think when this happened, we were, I think, one of the first museums who had to close because of this. And I know a lot of museums around the globe were already thinking, how do we talk to people when they can't come in the doors? And Rachel immediately also emailed, like, we need to really think about what we're sending out. And President Kennedy has such an important role in people's minds. And as we've talked about, his inspiration, it's important to, share that and let them know, folks know who follow us or who don't, that they're not alone. And also people, he was a very clever person. He's known for his wit. So there's also what I call when you're doom scrolling on Twitter, looking at all the awful, staggeringly overwhelming news, if you can see this little moment of joy, either if it's children with the dogs or President Kennedy at a news conference saying something, very clever, it's helpful just to break up your day and remind yourself that there's more out there and to step away from the intensity that I think we all feel right now.
And so, Rachel, what has that response been like?
It's been wonderful. I think even more, as Jamie said, as soon as we closed, we really sat back and thought about what we can offer to the country at this time. And we decided we can offer learning, we can offer inspiration, and we can offer comfort. So based on those guidelines, Jamie and the team set out very quickly to both curate material that would fall into those categories, but also invite the public to give suggestions. So through social media and the hashtag JFK at home, people have been submitting ideas of things that they want to see from us. So instead of guessing what would provide people right now in these circumstances with the learning and the inspiration and the comfort that they need, we've been hearing from our communities and taking that, and that's just been wonderful response. We've heard from people all over the globe, and we're able to curate that material and offer it back. If one person's looking for that, really wants to hear a certain speech of President Kennedy's or know more about Mrs. Kennedy's trips overseas or any number of other material that we have to offer, there are other people who are looking for that too. So we've really made it we want it to be a dialogue and a two-way dialogue so that we're not just sitting at home guessing what people are looking for. And that's been really heartening. And when we sent out, the team does all of that work on social media, but we also put it together so it's in one place in a weekly email digest called our new weekly JFK Digital Digest. And subscribers to our email list will get it all in one place every week, and also including some highlights of educational curriculum, like I mentioned previously, so that parents can be on the lookout for age-appropriate educational activities that they can do at home with their kids. So when we first sent out the first email announcing this plan, we received many emails from our followers and friends saying how grateful they were for this opportunity to hear from us at this time and to be part of the process of curating the content that would help people to learn, help people to be inspired and to take comfort.
That's great. This has been sort of a team effort, clearly. This situation isn't just one that is a health crisis, but there is an economic point to it, which, of course, is affecting everybody. We know that many nonprofits are facing challenges. So, Rachel, we want to ask you how the foundation is handling its work during this difficult time. But also, I'm going to add, Alan, people are also asking when institutions open up, how will they reopen? Will they be ready? I know the library was set to open a new temporary exhibit on the Kennedy children in the White House. Have those plans changed? So if the two of you could answer each of those questions, the ones addressed to Rachel and the ones addressed to Alan, that would be great.
Sure. I think that many people are feeling the economic hardship of the shutdown of really the country, aside from essential purposes in most areas of the country, and absolutely in Boston. And the Kennedy Library Foundation is the private side of the Kennedy Library public-private partnership. So we rely on funding, on donations to support raising funds to supplement the work that the Kennedy Library does, and also to support the programming and all of the digital work that we do. So we are really working to ensure the financial stability of the organization at this time. And when there is so much instability in the country and the markets, that is a challenge. And so to do so, we almost immediately made projections for fundraising for the year based on an unanticipated downturn in fundraising, given all of the financial concerns right now. And then we worked with the team, really collectively, the entire team across the foundation and many people on the library side whose work we fund, to cut equally from the expense budget. So we have a new projection for fundraising and a new expense budget that correlates with that so that we can be responsible with our spending while we really gain a better understanding of where we will come out on the fundraising side this year. And that's been a process that's been very collaborative, and feel that we are doing what's in the best interest of the organization.
Thank you. And Alan, about the library, and it's when we eventually turn the corner on this crisis, how is the library making its preparations to be ready to reopen?
Well, as many people who know libraries and museums understand, a lot of what we do is plan 6 months, a year, multiple years out. We have an exhibit schedule that runs out the better part of 10 years from now. So, all that negotiating of loan agreements and scheduling of contractors and planning the use of the space, this is always an opportunity to get ready for those future exhibits and programs. So we're excited to make the most of this time. We will absolutely be ready when, according to the public health experts, it is safe for our staff and for the community to fully reopen, and we look forward to that time. But I think, to also follow up on something Rachel said, I think this has been a good time for the foundation and the library to have conversations, fundamental conversations, about what do we do? How do we do that? What is the future of our educational programming, our archives, how we do our digitization? We can rethink the way we do things, not just as an immediate response to the current situation, but also think about the future of how do we best do things in a way that is more adaptable, reaches a broader audience, better utilizes the limited resources we have. All of that has been a very healthy conversation, though we have it through the beauty of teleconference rather than face-to-face, but it's a healthy conversation.
Thank you both. And we just want to wrap up. Again, thank you for your time. And as we are separated in all of our houses, it's wonderful to hear your voices and hear how you're thinking about all of the work that we have to do. And just to close, what would you both have to say to people listening to the podcast now? Is there any wisdom or any more JFK wisdom you would like to impart to them?
I think, at the risk of stealing from Alan again, I would say that today we are really faced with a new reality, and it's a new frontier for our time. So just as President Kennedy said that his new frontier would require new invention, innovation, imagination, and decision, we have an opportunity as an institution and as a country to take this on with courage and thoughtfulness and purpose. So I know at the Kennedy Library Foundation and the library, in partnership with the library, we're committed to really supporting the country in crisis and to rolling up our sleeves to do everything we can to ask what we can do for our country right now and make sure that President Kennedy's legacy and leadership are available as a reference to people for learning and inspiration and comfort.
I would add that this crisis or challenge is a defining set of circumstance that this generation will remember for their lives. And whether you like the government's response or you're frustrated by the government's response, you are going to be increasingly aware of the role of government in protecting the public and protecting the Constitution and advancing democracy. And whether you see it locally, regionally, or nationally, my hope is that families will remember that public service and service in the government, in whichever form, is a noble calling, and we need you. And I hope this generation will grow to fully appreciate what public service can be, and get educated and get involved and ultimately rise to do even more for public service, so that the next crisis, we will be ready.
Hear, hear.
Well, Alan, thank you so much. And Rachel, as to you, thank you both for being here today.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
All right. And we look forward to seeing both the library and the foundation open and seeing you guys in person sometime soon. Have a great day, all.
Bye-bye now.
Take care.
Thanks.
And with that, we wrap up this episode of JFK 35, a podcast from the JFK Library Foundation. If you want to receive the weekly digital digest of content Rachel mentioned earlier, please email us at jfk35pod@jfklfoundation.org.
And we wish you all well as we continue to stay home during this national crisis. Stay with us next time as we will bring you more stories from the JFK Library. And if you liked what you heard today, please consider subscribing to our podcast or leaving us a review from wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for listening, stay well, and have a great week.